Now for the trial guide. Guys, before starting, I just released a specific car course for the Ferrari F296 GT3, so if you want to get better in this car with an in-depth course covering all the aspects that you should be aware of in order to push this car to the limit, check the link in the video description. Now going into the trial guide itself, for turn 1 you really need to use all the space, meaning you need to be very close to the wall, so try to align to the wall as quickly as you can when you're coming off the finish line. And as a reference for braking, we have two references right here. We have this traffic lights with the orange lighting on it, and we have this white line. You can use both of them because in the race you might have your vision obstructed and you can't see the line. So if you can't see this line right here, use these traffic lights. But the line is gonna be a better reference because it's in front of your car. So when you can see the line, obviously use that. We're gonna brake past it. So make sure your car is not on the white line, it's to the right side with the left tires, and past the white line you're gonna be applying the brakes. What's important around here with the Ferrari is to keep a tighter line. Don't take the GTP line, so don't go on the right side of this white line right here. Stay on the white line, don't go wider than this, you're gonna lose time. The car is perfectly capable of rotating from this point onwards, and you're also gonna be pushing the throttle quite early, so stay around the white line. And in terms of braking, you just want to maintain high pressure. You don't want to drop very quickly because your goal will be to slow the car down while you turn. So if you bleed off the brakes way too quickly, you might find yourself struggling to point the car. So unless you don't see this left LEDs starting to flash, maintain the pressure, go to second gear. I think second gear is gonna be better, especially for the fixed setup. Don't stay into third. I think staying into third might be a bit quicker, but overall is not as consistent as second gear because you will get a lot of rotation out of it. Now, in terms of the apexing and in terms of the trail brake, you must hold the brakes up until you go past these tires on the left. So once you go past these tires, make sure you're very close, almost cutting this grass like this, and then immediately pushing the throttle. So make sure you're not pushing the throttle before the tires. It's always past the tires, and make sure you're not wider on the center of the track or on the right side, and you're following this white line. As you can see here on the grass, there's a bit of trace of the tire cutting the grass. So that's because in the previous lap I was taking this line. Keep a tight line around here, because the good thing is when you push the throttle and you reach 100% quite quickly, you will be in the center right, let's say. I could have pushed it a bit more towards the right. In this lap, you see I lost like half a tenth, but make sure you're not arriving on the yellow curb. The yellow curb will be a tough place to be because then in the next corner, even though it's flat out, you will have to do a small lift. The next corner curb is going to be quite treacherous, so you can't mount it too much. You can just barely brush it like this. But if you end up on your exit of turn 1 all the way on the right side, you might not have the luxury of just brushing it with a slightly touch. You might have to touch it more, and then the rear tires will slide. So make sure you're avoiding that, but not pushing very wide on the exit of turn 1. Now going into the next corner, the next braking zone around here, reference for braking around this corner will be this part on the right side where you see these 3 cones. Because before arriving to the first cone, you're gonna be applying the brakes. So always look on the right side here and always brake when you are 1 car length before this beginning of this exit road towards the right side. So brake in a straight line, and it's one more important thing that I want to add into this flow of this corner. You really want to hustle the steering wheel on the exit of this flat out corner. Like right now, you're gonna brush the curb like this and immediately position to the left. Don't lose time staying in the center so that you will move in the last minute or last second into the left side, into the white line, because you will be almost braking diagonally towards the left while turning into a right-hander. So therefore you will cover a longer distance with the steering wheel, and also it will put a bit more mental pressure so that you have to do 2 things at once. in comparison to just rushing to the left side, having the car straight, and then just focusing 100% on braking. So make sure you're doing that, make sure you're putting awareness into this, because even though it's a flat out corner, the one before it, if you don't hustle it enough, you will have a harder time into this corner. So our job is to make our life easier, to do consistent laps, and this is one of the ways that we'll have a slight edge around here. Now, in terms of braking and the approach for this corner, super important to think about the late apex. So when I'm braking on a straight line, I'm braking quite heavily, 80%. Because I'm already having the car straight, but then you have to drop it quite quickly, and there's a bit of compression going here, so you want to stay on the inside. But what's super important is to not push the throttle early. You have to nail a late apex. So if you push the throttle here in the beginning of the curve, you're just gonna go wide, you're gonna lose a lot of lap time. Instead, you need to trail brake in lower percentages a lot. So look here on the brake trace, still braking, still trailing, still trailing, and now going on the throttle almost in the middle of the curve. You're gonna push the throttle, but you won't fully commit to it. Like, you initially just give it a slight touch, and then you push it more and more, because you will have a lot of wheel spin. Because when you're gonna push the throttle initially, your steering wheel will be like this. Okay, you will have a lot of turning angle towards the right side, so you can't smash it. If you smash it, you will have a wheel spin on the rear tires. So to avoid that, you need to take your time and almost think that you have a string attached from the steering wheel and from the throttle pedal. The more that you steer, the less you should be pushing the throttle there. So once you unwind the steering wheel more, then you will go more aggressive with your throttle input. Your goal will be to just barely brush this curve, but not go and cut the grass. Even though you won't take an off track, cutting the grass just means that the car pushed wide. And the wider you go into this corner, the slower you'll be overall, because it means you took an early apex, or you were too greedy with the throttle. You probably had a bit of wheel spin, and you're also traveling a longer distance. You probably be using your steering wheel more to avoid getting full the grass and getting in the off track. So all in all, it's just unnecessary tire temps, and probably it's also going to be slower even in a one lap run. Now for the next corner, this flat out corner, like the corner that we had before turn 3, the flat out corner, it's the same. You need to hustle the car around here. You need to really keep a tight line. So turn late and follow this white line like this. On the exit of this corner, or the entry on the next one, you should be parallel with this white line, almost at the grass, because we will use this concrete on the left to open up like this. Like, you shouldn't be in the center of the track braking into this corner. It's gonna be slower. Instead, you should be all the way on the left, using this exit road on the left side. In terms of the reference for braking, you will use this cone right here, because when that cone on the left stops being in your vision, you'll be applying the brakes. Another reference you should be using, or you could be using for braking if you can't see these, is the middle of this exit road. Like here in the middle, I'm applying the brakes, and on entry I'm using everything. Look, on entry I'm on the white line, but then as I go more and more into the corner, I go more diagonally, because you see this corner opens up like this, but you shouldn't be using all the track right here. You should put the car almost in the center like this. You can see this line in the center of the track, this darker line. Your car should be in the middle initially, but then your car should be on with the left tires on this line. So don't go to the left of this line, stay on this lane right here. And in second gear, once again, the trail braking should be long enough, because we need a late apex. However, this corner almost looks like a double apex, because you're apexing early, then the car gets a bit wider on the trail brake, and then you push the throttle mid corner, so to speak, and then the car cuts again and keep a tight line. So definitely a tricky corner. Make sure you're using everything on corner entry. Make sure mid corner you're not opening up more than you need. Just keep the car into the right lane. And while approaching this corner, keep it a tight line overall, because you need to be tight around here. You shouldn't be pushed all the way to the grass, it means you just understeer. And in terms of throttle input, you should have a quite decisive throttle application like you see in the shape here. And now we're preparing for one of the most important corners of the track, because it leads to a big straight. First of all, you need to be using this curve right here to brake on, to open up. You see, there's a bit of space here where the track opens up to the right side. You should be using that on your way out to the braking. In terms of reference for braking, the braking reference is the middle of this curve. So right now, almost in the middle or slightly before the middle part of this exit road on the right side, I'm applying the brakes. You don't want to brake super hard, like 70% pressure is gonna be enough. But stay in third gear, don't go into second. Second gear will slow down the car a bit more, and also it's gonna give you a bit of wheel spin on corner exit. And it's very hard around here to not get wheel spin, because you have a lot of steering wheel angle and you have the throttle application, so the traction control will kick in. The rear tires will slide. So in order to avoid that, stay in third gear. It's gonna be a bit harder to rotate, so you have to brake a bit more than you think. And you have to trail brake a bit longer than you think, but it's gonna give you a much better exit, which is all that matters around here. And what I was emphasizing before was that you should be using this curb to brake on, this yellow curb. So make sure your right tire is on this curb to open up the corner. Every advantage that you can gain into this corner will be huge. So make sure you're using that. Then you're gonna trail brake more and more, and make sure you're cutting this part. Don't cut too much, because you can get the off track. That's pretty much how much you can just get away with, but make sure you're cutting this curb like this. Then release the brakes. You can have a slight gap in your inputs around here. I found that it helped the car settle. And then push the throttle quite aggressively. Make sure you're not going wide, so in terms of the line, make sure you're not using this curb on the right side, the orange one. If you get to the orange curb, you are pretty much too aggressive on the throttle, or you didn't rotate enough with the brakes, or you brake way too late. So make sure you're not on this part of the track. You're keeping a quite tight line, not very tight, because your goal will still be to arrive to this wall. So you should push wide on the exit, but on entry and mid, you shouldn't be very wide. Now I'm gonna bring the car all the way to the left, and now it's just a straight line up until the bus stop. For the bus stop, first things first, make sure you're using all the track, and make sure you're aligning yourself early to the wall right here, because you don't want to align in the last moment. It's gonna put unnecessary pressure to just making the corner. So make sure you use all the time in advance to line up. Then in terms of the reference for braking, you need to brake in the middle of one board and the two board. There's also traffic lights in the middle, so let me show you. This one right here, the orange one on the top. Slightly past it, you're gonna be applying the brakes. So past it, I'm applying the brakes right now. And super important, not brake very hard. Like I'm going to 50%, because I'm trying to keep the speed up as well, and downshifting very quickly to fourth gear. And now from this point onward, you really need to steer more than you think, because you need to cut a lot here. So look, I'm making sure that the car arrives to this lighter color part of the curb, like this. This is the entry into the bus stop. So you need to cut a lot here. I can't emphasize enough. If you're not cutting enough in this part, you will lose a lot of lap time. It's the biggest straight of the track after this bus stop, up until turn 1. So having a good entry into this chicane will be like the first thing you need to learn. Now in terms of the braking itself, because this is not very intuitive, you need to drop the brakes almost completely once you're pointing the car to this curb, because otherwise the car will understeer. So look, at this point in time I have this amount of brake pressure, but then as I want the car to turn more, I release the brakes. It's super easy to go past the grip limit by having too much brake, so generally use the brakes to make the car rotate, but it can go very easily from a point of rotation to over the limit in which the car doesn't rotate at all. So I'm releasing the brakes from this point onward completely, almost holding just 3%, and then you see I'm not releasing completely, I'm just releasing to wherever the car starts to point, 3% in that case. But then once the car is pointing into the right direction and you see you have a good entry by cutting all the way to the grass, then you can reapply the brakes, because you're almost gonna brake in a straight line now. Almost. You're still turning left, but still you have a good line, so you can reapply the brake first. And then when you take this corner right here, you should always be on the orange, not be on the white line here. If you're on the white or the lighter color, you'll have such a worse exit. So make sure you're on the orange, and the moment that you hit this curb, you should be back on the gas. Like right now, we're already back on throttle, 1% throttle. And also super important, hold it in fourth gear. Don't go into third. Third gear is tempting, but it's gonna do two things. It's gonna lower your minimum speed, which is not the end of the world because the exit matters more than the entry, but still it's gonna make your entry a bit slower, but it will give you some oversteer and some heating up of the rear tires, which you don't really want around here. Obviously you don't want understeer, but if you put too much pressure on the rear tires, the problem is that they will overheat, and you need the rear tires to provide a good traction on the exit. You need the rear tires to push the car from here to the turn one, to the start finish line. So because the exit is a lot more important, if you can get the rotation from the fourth gear without stressing the rears too much, you will have a superior exit out of this corner, which this is what I'm trying to do. So pushing the throttle around here and very confident to 100%. Make sure you're cutting here as much as you can. You can even hustle the steering wheel more. And then you're gonna be pushing all the way to the grass right here. Pushing to the grass, almost cutting it is not gonna be an off track. And in short, that's gonna be it. That's gonna be the exit that you need. So I hope you have a nice week around here, and if you're racing Daytona in the 24-hour event, I hope this was helpful as well. Make sure to take it easy, make sure to get accustomed with the track, with the car, with a fixed setup. And if you want to get better in this car, or if you want to get better at racing technique, check out my website. Thanks for watching and looking forward to see you in the next one. Bye bye.